Hi, guys. Welcome back to Having a Ball podcast. I am your host, Erika.
And I'm Lucy.
And today's final episode of season 1 is Risky or No.
We're starting off strong today.
Yeah. Ricky asks for a raise. And this was...
Wait. You also took a pause between the final episode and this season. And I was like, yep, final episode of the podcast. That's it. Bye, guys.
I'm going to edit that part out and just let it breathe. And they're like, what happened? Where'd they go? They gave up.
Yeah, we gave up. Nope, go ahead. Sorry.
So again, this is season 1, episode 35. And this was directed by Mark Daniels, written by Jess Oppenheimer, Madeline Pugh, and Bob Carroll. Filmed May 2nd, 1952. And the synopsis is, at Lucy's urging, Ricky tries to pressure his boss into giving him a raise, only to get him fired. To make things right, Lucy and the Murriettas book every table at Tropicana and don various disguises, only to storm out when they hear Ricky Ricardo is not playing there anymore. I think I just did the entire episode. And
all right. Well, that was great.
Thank
you for coming on.
On My Favorite Husband episode, George Tries for a Raise, episode 57. Of course, that's Lucille Ball's radio show. Now, from the Paper Moon Tumblr, which we have to give a huge shout out because whoever runs the Paper Moon Tumblr is just overflowing.
You guys, if you
around, are Paper Moon,
reach out to us, please.
If you are,
we would love to interview you. And I use them for every podcast. So. Yeah.
They are just an ocean of information.
Yes.
And here is the blurb is, while rehearsing for this particular episode is when Lucille Ball found out she was pregnant again. And at first they thought this would mean the end of the show, especially since this was the last episode of the season. It was writer. Oh, again, a side note, because back then being pregnant is kind of a either a career ending situation or just especially she was in her 40s, and
right.
Doing this show, they're probably like, well, that was a good run, and that's one for the history books. But of course they came up with the idea that Lucy should be pregnant on TV, which is a whole thing. We'll get into season 2 with that. And due to her pregnancy, they filmed 4 more episodes before the summer hiatus began. Then they came back in early August to film as many episodes as possible before Lucy's due date. So she worked hard. I mean, she wasn't 20.
Do you imagine?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I know that a lot of actresses do this now. Like nowadays, I mean, it's not horribly, but pregnancies are written into shows.
Oh, it's not a big
now.
Not a big deal now. Mm-hmm.
But even them, could you imagine just being pregnant and working on a set?
Yeah.
The lights, all day, like, ooh,
the timing, the hours rehearsing.
I had a hard enough time being a waitress while I was pregnant. I was like,
that must have been, yeah. I mean, the stress
and
of
then the
just
food,
that.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And when when the show revolves around you, it's not like you can take a day off and say, I won't be in this episode. You are the show.
Right.
So
exactly,
it was a lot.
It wasn't like
on her.
She wasn't just a guest star that could be written out for a little bit.
It'd be weird she's not here this time. So yeah, the
of course they do write her out for a few episodes when they do the flashback episodes.
Oh yes, yeah. But she's still in it.
Written out, but she's in it. Yes, yeah. She just not there.
So let's open up the show. And they are getting ready for dinner with the Littlefields.
Yes. This is the second and last time we see the Littlefields.
Mm-hmm. We just talked about them in Lucy's schedule. Is when we introduced that couple, and they're in this one.
Yeah, but Ricky is, he's getting ready, and Lucy comes in. She's like, "How do I look?" He doesn't even look at her. It says 5. She's like, how can I look fine? I'm in this old house dress. And she has a reason why she's in an old house dress. Her hair's done a bit differently.
It's a lot is all because bigger and poofier.
Fuller. Yeah.
Fuller.
Mm-hmm. I think she just, because if her hair's fuller, maybe her face looks thinner.
Yeah, well, she does
But
say
she's
that maybe
trying to
she should
look
suck in her cheeks
suck in
so
her
she can.
cheek. She just looks like a fish. Anyways, um, what she's trying to do is have Ricky ask Mr. Littlefield for a raise.
Mhm.
They've come to the end of the contract and he's re-upping for the next year. And Lisa's like, all right, you have to ask for this contract.
I
And
wonder how
Ricky's
much
not so good.
time went from Lucy's schedule episode to this because he just became Mr. Manager at the
Yeah,
Lucy schedule, and now he's all of a sudden asking for a raise. So how much time,
it's been a
lapsed
while.
between those two
Could have been a
those two
while.
episodes? Yeah. Yeah, so like you said, there Lucy's kind of, egging him on to ask for the raise because Ricky's now in this scenario, are you Lucy or are you Ricky in terms of
I feel
personality?
like I'm a mixture of both. So
Mhm,
like I definitely have told Colin he should ask for a raise. So
mhm,
there's that.
mhm.
But if I had to ask for a raise, I'd probably ask for one like Ricky.
You don't have any more money to give me, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm more like Ricky
So
because the anxiety of listen, you mentioned you were a waitress, and I am that person that if there's something wrong on the plate, I I'm just gonna let it go. Unless it's like, I asked for steak and they gave me spaghetti, then but if it's something like,
right.
not cooked or something just off, I'm just gonna, or my husband's personality is like, bring everybody in this restaurant and let me tell them what's wrong with this plate. And I'm like,
Every single person.
I'm gonna eat it. So yeah, I'm more like, yeah, the anxiety of asking someone for a raise is too much for me. But she's trying to build them up, to get this raise.
Yeah, they run through some scenarios.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Ricky's is a flop where he says, you don't have any more money for me, do you?
Yeah.
And then uh Lucy is basically like, all right, we need to discuss how much of a raise you'll be giving me. Just like jumps right into
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And what I love is the role playing she does, that he's weak, bloated, and vulnerable
Yes.
after dinner.
After a
So she's
meal.
pretending she's rubbing her belly and saying, "Yes, my boy." and so, that's exactly what he sounds like later on. But
Mm-hmm.
at the last scenario, he ends up getting the raise.
Right. And
Mhm.
then Ricky says, well, I hope he, is that sensible or something.
Yeah, I hope it works that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And so that's the first, at this point, I can't remember exactly what he says, but that's the first time she makes fun of his accent. And
oh,
she makes fun of it 3 times in this episode, which isn't a horribly large amount, but that's more than, I feel like you get one in there an episode, but there were 3 different
the word you
times.
were trying to think of and the mocking is logically.
Logically.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the word, because
Yeah.
he has a hard time with that, which is a hard word, let alone if you have an accent, it's a second language. So yeah, that's what he was trying to say. So then it cuts to the living room, and like you mentioned, she's wearing just a house dress and her hair just, it looks like you're not paying us enough. That's why I'm not all glammed up, or I don't eat much because you don't pay us enough. And it cuts to the living room, and there we have, like in Lucy's schedule, Gail Gordon and Edith Meisner.
I wish that we had seen more of them. I think they missed opportunities
Mm-hmm.
for funny episodes, but uh let's see. So they're talking, they're
Well,
chit-chatting.
he compliments. Now, here's the thing that stood out to me, and it's probably a sign of the times, going back again to Lucy's schedule. The food is great. He's saying, and he looks over at Ricky and says, your wife is a great cook. She's right there. Compliment her, because after he says, your wife is a great cook, she's like right there. And she turns around and says, well, thank you, because I'm the one who spent all day in the kitchen. But it's
I
interesting
have some family members that do that. They'll talk to Colin about
about
me
you in
while
front of
I'm
you.
right there. I'm like, hello, hi, I'm here. Please speak to me.
It's a great
So,
conversation opportunity, other than, it's kind of like being called Mrs. Ricky Ricardo. Like you don't have an identity. So it's just kind of the same thing. But and the next thing is, I want you to get Mrs. Ricardo's recipe for cheesecake. Like,
Yes. Like
yeah.
if she wanted to, then she can ask. Like that shouldn't be something that's forced to,
Well,
or you could be like, I really like that. Do you think you could get
that
the recipe?
the delivery, the way it's but
Yeah,
it's like I
because
want
I can
you.
understand that. Start gesturing, and I really like this because I like how
It's kind of
Lucy
like
plays it off. She's like, but they're gesturing. Lucy's like, okay, ask him now. That's what the gestures
the
are.
cue.
And Ricky's like, no, no. So Lucy's the one who brings it up. Well, Mr. Littlefield's, he asks if she said something,
Mm-hmm.
and she went, no, but Ricky has a question for you. It's one of those things where like, petty childhood thing,
Yeah.
when like a
Mhm.
bunch of people want to ask something,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, no, I don't want to ask it. She has a question for you. And then you don't have to ask the question.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah. And so she's egging him on to ask. And here's what I love is that they're pretending that he's got offers coming in from other places for him to leave the Tropicana and go elsewhere and maybe make some more money. And Mr. Littlefield's like, oh, how many such offers have you got?
Why did you say 12?
Lucy's like 4. He's like 12. I got 8 more this morning.
This morning. Okay, that's a bit much.
She's like, oh, okay. You got
you
8
can see
more.
her face like, oh, all right.
8 more. That's hilarious.
Really took it and ran.
Yeah. And so he's like, well, that puts me in sort of a, because first he says no. He starts off by saying, no, I don't have the money to give you a raise. And he's like, I got it. I get it. Totally. It's fine. And that's when they start talking about, or Lucy comes in and says, well, you're going to have to take one of those other offers. Cause he was ready to just drop it because he's okay.
Right.
He said,
like,
no.
okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah, that would be me.
Pouring Miss Littlefield some coffee. All right.
That's right. She pours her coffee and then,
Poor Miss Littlefield. We'll talk about this later, but all I think is like, she's a poor woman. Anyways,
just overall poor woman.
Yeah. But talking about these offers, and yeah, Mr. Littlefield's like, oh, he's weighing his options, right? Like I could either pay him more or he could take one of these other options. And he goes, you know what? I want you to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like you, so take one of the other options.
My boy.
My boy.
And he's like, oh, you hold on, let's let him reconsider, dear. Let's give him a second chance.
Lucy says, let's give him one more chance. I like that part.
And he's like, no.
Nope.
And the way he says it though is what really turned Ricky off. I think it wasn't just a no, I can't. It was a N-O. And when someone spells it out for you, I don't care what conversation you're having, it's completely over because that's
And he's like, okay, I quit. K-W-I-T.
I forgot about that. He started spelling too, and then Lucy's face is like, what?
But then this is where I say poor Miss Littlefield, because she's literally just over there drinking her coffee, not bothering anyone. Mm-hmm. And Lucy turns to her and she's like, and don't think you're gonna get my cheesecake recipe. And she goes, what?
Yeah, I do. It's between you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, so she's but that's it. That's the last we see of her. Oh no, she pops up later.
No, she pops up later. Yeah, again, does. Poor woman though.
Yeah. That's right. I just thought about you. So yeah, so he's quitting there, and the next time, the next scene is Ethel is there, and they're chatting about this depression that he's in, this slump now because he's now out of a job because of this. So he hasn't gotten out of bed for the last couple of days and is just kind of moping around. Then he does pop out all dressed up, ready to go.
Fully dressed. Mm-hmm. Yep. And Lucy gets really excited. She's like, yay, you're gonna go find another job. And he goes, no, I'm gonna go to the unemployment office. Now I tried to look it up, mm-hmm. and I couldn't figure it out, like how unemployment worked back then. Like after 2 days, you can go get a check from the employment office? Like,
Well, maybe he just went to apply where, you and I would do it today online, or a call. I think then you'd have to show up in person. And that's probably, I don't think he's going to come home with a check, because
okay.
Lucy says to him, you'll be bringing home a paycheck, any day. And he's like, yep, sure am, because I'm going to go down to the unemployment office. And so maybe it's just an application sort of thing. And then in the meantime, he's not, but
Maybe. Okay. And that's, I mean, that is a difference though, because they don't have unemployment offices anymore, do they?
I think
I
there's,
don't,
well,
I think
here in
it's all online.
California, I can think of two EDD offices, unless they're no
Oh,
longer in existence. I do know everything's done online, so I don't know.
oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
but
Anyways, he says he's going to go to the unemployment office, and this gets Lucy. I mean, she's quite worried. She's like, all right,
mhm.
I've got to make this better. You know,
Yeah, I got to
she
fix this
she
so
at
he
one
can.
point she told Ethel that it was her worst egging, most rotten egging
Oh
on
yes,
that she's ever done. Right?
yes, because she
Um,
egged them on. Yeah.
yeah. So she decides, what if we call and we make a bunch of reservations, and then at the last moment everybody gets headaches and no
Mhm.
one shows up.
Yeah.
So that's the original plan. She starts calling, and you see one phone call, and then she sends Ethel to call on the other line
Right.
so that
To
it's booked up,
book up
right?
the entire place, booked up with these phantom reservations.
And this is where we see Maurice. Maurice,
Mm-hmm.
yes, who is
Yeah.
played by Maurice Marsac. He was born in France in 1915. A little mix up. So in the script, his name was William.
Yeah.
And so at the very end, the announcer, Roy Rowan, his voiceover credits, he says that the role of William was played by Maurice Marzag. But Gail Gordon, Mr. Littlefield, accidentally calls him Maurice, and so they just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
it's
really
a time
pick
of
up
like
on
live, right? Like,
yeah.
he wouldn't be like, oh, William, sir. Well, it kind of would have been funny if
Yeah.
he didn't
Although,
know his
you know what, who that
name.
happens to is, oh gosh, the guy who's always part of Ricky's band, who's actual Desi's friend. Oh goodness. Anyway, but he always flips up and calls him Des a lot in the apartment when they're doing the piano. But yeah, it's sort of like that. You just roll with it because it's live, you don't do a retake, so you just kind of go with it. So yeah, so he's very excited. There's a moment where the audience cheers him on after he gets done booking everybody.
He's got the two phones, right?
Yeah.
So I think they cheer him on because he did a really good job. Like, as a guest actor, he just
kept going. Yeah,
he did it right. Yeah. And so my question is, how do they remember all these stuff? We'll talk about it in a second. So we get Mr. Littlefield is just really excited that they're all booked out. Mm-hmm. And he's like, this is what happens when you hire someone with talent.
That's just mean.
Shots fired.
That's
that's so mean. But then there's one more call. Mm-hmm. And it's Lucy again pretending to be the Southern woman. I can't remember her name, but she asks, and he goes, nope, we're all booked up, we can't do it. And so
was it Mrs. McGillicuddy? Miss McGillicuddy?
Scarlett Culpepper was the Southern accent.
Okay.
That was the last woman to call.
Okay.
And she got denied, and so that's how they knew, okay, we're done. And at that time, Fred and Ethel come up. Mm-hmm. Perfect timing, right? Like, mm-hmm. I don't know how they knew. Mm-hmm. But they come up, and they're talking about how they're so
exhausted,
tired, blah blah blah.
Making all these
and
calls.
Lucy goes, well, this is going to make Ricky look really good. And this is when Fred points out although no one would be there and it would make him look bad, it wouldn't necessarily make Ricky look good.
Yeah, because the reasoning that they're not showing up is what's the impact.
Yeah, exactly. So then Lucy goes, okay, wait, we have to go. Then we have to, go there, have them see Ricky Ricardo's not there, and then leave.
Right. And so they're like, well, they know who we are. They're,
right.
They're
and
going
one
to
table
is not going to
do anything.
Yeah. So he brings up that he has a quick change artist friend named Hal King, who in reality was the show's makeup artist and brother-in-law of the real Max Factor, who did Lucille Ball's makeup for ages, entire career. And I mean, there's photos of him touching her up, and doing all her makeup, but that's what's used on the chest of the costumes. And so they have the chest there with the name, and they're ready to do like a quick change. So we're going to be this couple, we're going to be this lady, that man. And this is the first and only time we see the entrance of the Tropicana. I mean, we've never seen that set before. So that's where they come in after changing, which looks like maybe a backstage area. Well, the Tropicana wouldn't have a backstage. Well, I guess it would if it has a band, just sort of like along the side. I'm wondering where they changed though, because that looks like it's inside the club.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's supposed to just be like the hallway or maybe the alleyway outside. Because it says behind, it says like the Green Supply Company. So I'm guessing that that's like an alley that they run out to the back of the alley. The Green Supply Company's in honor of Bennett Green, who is Desi stand-in. And then actually, before we go too far on, a lot of the names in this episode were from people.
Yes, I did notice that. Are part of the show in one way or another.
Yeah, Harry Ackerman was the CBS vice president. He's the producer in the audition.
I know there was a Thompson.
Murray Thompson, was the show's camera coordinator. And he appeared on camera once in Lucy Writes a Play as a stage manager. And then Mrs. Bennett is probably in reference to the camera and lighting stand-in Bennett Green as well. And then, of course, we have Xavier Valdez.
Yeah, they do show a poster of who's going to replace Ricky. Who they're there to watch is Xavier Valdez,
which is for Xavier Cugat.
Yeah, Xavier Cugat was Desi's previous employer, and he's always thrown in there as sort of a rival, to the Ricky Ricardo character. Sort of like when Lucy says, I don't care, I wouldn't marry you if you were Xavier Cugat, so it's always, they always do a reference of Xavier Cugat for that reason, sort of like a rival. And they also did use another name for Valdez, which was another band leader that was the original Mr. Babalu before even Desi or Ricky Ricardo did it.
You say it.
What's that?
Miguelito?
Miguelito?
What's his first? Yes.
Miguelito. Yes. And so, so they do quick changes, and I do have the characters that come in, one after the other. You have the eccentric Countess Blabitsky with Hazel and her escort Frederica. And Hazel, of course, is a nod to Hazel Pierce, and Frederica is Fred as a woman. And you have stuffy Mrs. Worthington Proudfoot and Party. You have the very English Mr. and Mrs. Marion Chumley, and Miss McGillicuddy, a gumchewy Runyon-esque flues. That's what I have. Now, that one, I love. That's my favorite outfit of hers. She's got like the blonde hair. She's got that really cute.
I love her personality too. Like it's just the whole package is so great.
It's really good. It's really good. And so all of them are just aghast that Ricky's not there anymore. Ricky Ricardo isn't here anymore. And so, was there not a call that Lucy did her famous Tallulah banquet?
Hello, darling.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
She said, hello, Tropicana, darling. But we don't see her show up. That one show up at the restaurant. So basically, it's in and out. Obviously, well, I don't know, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, they didn't have to actually quick change. But now that I'm thinking about it, they probably did want to do, because it was live. So they probably wanted to quick change to an extent. I do know that a lot of quick changes, they'll do certain outfits so that they can just take off.
Like
so like you
tear it
can wear
off
like 2 or 3 outfits
like
at
a
a time.
Velcro, maybe.
Right before.
Underneath.
And then when they
yeah.
all come in wearing coats, they
Mhm.
probably didn't change, maybe took out the bosom of
Because it
Ethel
was,
there
it
because
wasn't
it was
necessary.
ginormous.
Right.
But anyways, they did the quick changes, and they came in, found out Ricky Ricardo wasn't there, left, and they kept doing that until finally Mr. Littlefield was. Oh wait, we forgot to say that Miss Littlefield comes at one point.
So the place
Right,
is
Mrs.
empty,
Littlefield.
right? The place is
Yes.
empty because, nobody's there. And of course, each one of these have huge parties with them. So like tables of 30, tables of 14, tables of
17, yeah.
10. Yeah. So all these tables are now empty. And so Mr. Littlefield is losing his mind because the place is now he's going to go broke. And so Mrs. Littlefield comes in and he's excited because there's a guest there. And it's like, oh, it's just you.
Oh, it's just you. She goes, oh.
And she's like, why is it empty? And, can you just look like you're enjoying yourself? Smile. And when she smiles, he's like, oh no. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that poor woman just existing.
With him, though,
with
maybe.
him. That's
Existing
true.
with him.
Yeah.
So he decides, okay, listen, he asks Maurice, he says, please get Ricky on the phone. We have to get him back.
Because
right?
everyone's
going to
leaving.
go broke.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the next scene we see is there's Lucy, Ethel, and Fred, and they're all kind of just like relaxing, congratulating
Very
themselves,
proud of
pat on the back,
themselves.
because Ricky wrote a note that says he's going to go talk to
Mr. Littlefield.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he comes back. He's super excited. His ego might have gotten,
The best
a little
of him.
Inflated there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best of him. So he basically says, Mr. I went, he explains everything that they know, right?
Right.
And he says, and he offered me what was twice what I was getting or something like that.
He's like,
a big raise.
Yeah, exactly. He said, well, guess how much? He said twice, no, 3 times as much.
And then he said, but I didn't take it. He's like, if I could, if I was this popular there, I could write my ticket anywhere. And that's how it ends, guys. That's the end of the episode.
That's it.
And it's supposed to be like a cliffhanger.
Yes, because
we all know that he has that job next
everyone's
season, so it's fine.
Whoa. And this is the second time he gets fired from something when Lucy tries to help. But in the Hollywood one is where she's pretending to be his agent, and she calls, and then they say, we don't want to stand in his way of.
So this is the first of 2 times, because that
first
one's
of 2
later
times
on.
Yes. And so he also loses his job thanks to pretending to have bigger opportunities elsewhere.
He was a great agent in that one. And then in the French Review, Lucy tries to sneak into the Tropicana as well, and she's Miss Worthington Proudfoot again. So we do bring that back as well.
I wonder where she got that from. I would like to know what the Proudfoot is, or Worthington. Is there a reasoning for it?
That is the end of season 1, guys.
End of season 1.
That is how they ended it, on a cliffhanger. Ooh. Right?
Yeah.
Does he have a job? Are we gonna open to them being bums?
Season 2, they're on the street, like that dream that she has that you don't like. And
you don't like it either, do you?
No, I don't. It's very uncomfortable. It's unnecessary. But yes, thanks guys for listening with us through season 1. We're gonna take a couple of weeks off, and then we'll start up again with season 2. And we're really excited about that because it's the pregnancy season. And thank you for listening. If you guys want to listen back, we have interviews, we have movie reviews that Lucy's been in. We're probably going to do another one coming up soon too. And
we should do a poll, see what people want to.
Yeah, would you want movie reviews, more Hollywood mysteries, an interview or two with Lucy page holders, things like that. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. Our social media is Having a Ball Pod everywhere, and our email is havingballpod@gmail.com.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.